Hi there, I've owned a Kindle now for 3 years, and the number one feature that keeps me coming back for more are the note-taking capabilities. Now if you hear that and you're cringing on the inside, give me a chance here before you click off this video. It actually blows my mind at the number of people who don't use the note-taking features on their Kindle, and I really want to talk about that in this video. Now the first thing I want to talk about is why should you take notes, and I really think there's a good purpose for both fiction and non-fiction books. I'll start with nonfiction. It's pretty obvious. Taking notes while you read is a great way to retain the knowledge that you're learning, especially if the information you're learning is very, very specific and important. Instead of going back to revisit the whole book in the future, you can simply revisit your notes and annotations, and that's a much quicker way to reference the information that you learned. Now for fiction books, taking notes might be a little less obvious, and I'll be fully transparent. I don't have as much experience in this realm. I'm more of a nonfiction reader myself, but I really do think taking notes while reading a fiction book can still be extremely beneficial for you. One example I could think of is while you're reading a fiction book, if any questions or thoughts come to mind, it's a really great way just to jot down a highlight and capture those thoughts that you have in your mind alongside those highlights via the note-taking features on your Kindle. I think that is a great example of a way you can take notes while reading a fiction book. Or even if you have a quote that you stumble across, maybe it's a very specific visual element that you're imagining that really stood out to you. All these things are things you can highlight while you read. Now again, regardless of whether it's a fiction book or a non-fiction book, at the end of the day, taking notes will make you a more engaged reader, and that will be a benefit no matter what you are reading. The second thing I want to talk about is actually how to take a note on your Kindle. Now I have a ton of videos on this topic, but in a nutshell, it's a very simple process. All you have to do is drag your finger across a sentence, a paragraph, or an entire page even, whatever stands out to you, just highlight it with your finger, and then after that, you can press the note button to type out a note with the keyboard if something is on your mind that you want to capture. Having a Kindle makes this process so freaking easy. Before I had my Kindle, I had to carry around a highlighter, a notebook, a pen. It was always such a hassle, but on a Kindle, literally all you need is your finger and a bit of patience. It just takes an extra few seconds while you're reading to do these little highlights, and I strongly recommend it. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is reviewing your notes and your highlights and any annotations that you make. This part is probably the most important, but also probably the least utilized because it requires a little bit of effort, but I'm going to show you 3 different ways you can do it. The first way you can review your highlights and your notes is by simply going into the Kindle book and going to the notes section and scrolling through all your highlights and your notes right there, and you can find everything that you wrote down while you read the book in one easy to read section. Now this method works really well, but it does require you to go back into the book and scroll through and find your highlights and review them. It's not going to be an automatic process. It's very labor intensive. The second technique is a bit easier in my opinion. What we have to do is go back to that same section where we find the notes for a Kindle book, but this time at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a button saying export notes. When you press on this button, the Kindle will generate a nice little PDF for you and email it to your Amazon email address so you can use that PDF on your computer and copy and paste your notes anywhere you'd like. This is a great habit to get into at the end of a book. When you finish reading, simply export a PDF of all your notes to yourself, and you can store that PDF on your computer, which makes it so much easier to actually search for things. You can add them to a database or something like that. Whatever you decide to do, this is a great free technique for reviewing your highlights on your Kindle. Now the third method actually takes things a bit further, but it does cost a little bit of money. If you're willing to pay for a third-party service called Readwise, you can automate this entire process and not have to lift a finger while still reviewing all your highlights every single day. I'll leave a link down below if you want to try an extended free trial of Readwise. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just a very big supporter, and I do have an affiliate link that will support this channel. But the way the app works is you simply connect your Amazon account to the Readwise account, then all of a sudden, all your Kindle highlights will be synced over to Readwise. Now, Readwise is an app that is specifically designed for reviewing your notes and highlights, and the way it does that is by emailing you every single day 5 random highlights that you've taken on your Kindle so you can review them. This act of reviewing 5 highlights every single day has become ingrained in my daily routine. I love doing it, and I'm constantly seeing highlights and notes from books I've read years ago, things I would have otherwise forgotten. Now, Readwise has a ton of other features that makes reviewing your highlights so much more fun. I have a whole video that talks about my personal workflow for both taking notes and reviewing them. If you want to learn more about the capture system, link for that video on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.